often, little and often. Pedro Casillas, little and often. Pedro, you have the stage.
Thank you. And can you everyone see the screen? So we're at this time of year where Christmas is upon us, and it's that dreaded looking forward to the new year. I haven't got to green already, Anakilla, but thank you for testing this out for me. So we're at this dreaded time where people start talking about what are your goals for the new year. And as we know, well, many of us do know that lots of people have great intentions that they're going to do wonderful things in the new year. Going to join the gym, going to get fit, we're going to do all those speeches. And what often happens is by February of the next year, people have moved on and they're doing other things. I'd like to share with you my journey for the past couple of years and explain how I use what I call the little and often method that's helped me to achieve what I've been achieving over the past couple of years. Because for a lot of people, and I believe this is true, that a lot of people fail to plan. They just think, yeah, we're going to do this, I'm going to achieve wonderful things, but they're really planning to fail because they're not really paying attention to what they're trying to do. Now, as you know, I've been on this journey of trying to improve my levels of French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And as a lot of people say to me, you know, Pedro, you'll never be fluent. You have to live in the country to be like that. And I get frustrated with this because what is fluent? What is good? What is excellence? And I have no idea. So I go with this. This is what I've been aiming at, is to be as good as I possibly can. Because I know that if I were to live in Santander from next week, I could get my level up in Spanish better than it is today. But does that make me fluent? Who knows what fluent means? Do we tell children when they start out in life, by the time you're 18, you'll be fluent in whatever language it happens to be? No, we don't. We never say anything like that to them. And we know that there are some 18-year-olds who are far more articulate than others in whatever country they happen to come from. So again, we never put that sort of pressure on. So I come back to this little and often type of approach. And this is how effective it has been for me. So this is, you might know that I track everything I do in terms of Toastmasters. I've got a spreadsheet which I monitor all the speeches I've ever given since 2018. Before that, I wasn't so diligent, but from 2018, I have been. And as you can see when you're looking at this, in 2018, I delivered 6 speeches in the whole year. In 2019, I did 5 in the whole year. Now, I was doing other things in Toastmasters. I was a district director, and then I was the immediate past district director. So I was busy doing lots of different things. But nevertheless, that's the number of speeches I delivered. Fast forward to when I started doing the French and the Spanish. It took me by surprise when I noticed this number that I had delivered in the course of 2020, 26 speeches. And I was going, how? I didn't feel like I was doing anything more than I was normally doing, but turns out I did 26 speeches. And it started in March, and I can track it to when it started, because in March was the beginning of lockdown in the UK, and it was the last time I attended a Toastmasters meeting in person at my old club called Grosvenor Square Speakers, where the club was celebrating its 40th anniversary that night. And from there afterwards, we went online. suddenly we became Zoom giants or Zoom masters. And that's when I started to move around and see, oh, let's go and explore. I was also working towards the role of international director, which I didn't get, but nevertheless, I started to visit different countries, and I started offering my services to do different speeches. So the number of English speeches is much higher than anything else, because that was the main language as I was working in when I was going around different places. Now, fast forward to 2021, when I just carried on this, going to Sardinero, going to other clubs, and I looked at the numbers. I went up to 56 speeches in 2021. 56 speeches, and I was looking at it, and it was incremental. At the beginning of the year, up to July, it was reasonable numbers, but after July, it just exploded. And I'm still looking at it and thinking, I did 10 speeches in October, 10 in November. What on earth was going on? And then fast forward to this year, I've done 50 speeches this year. And again, it's pretty, I'm very impressed with it. But I do not believe I've been putting in any more effort than I've always put in to what I do. The only thing I've been doing is little and often. So if I look back on how I've done all this type of stuff, when I go back to 2021, 22 and look at my goals, I wrote things down. And that was, I think, one of the key reasons I've been able to do what I've done, because I wrote down a few things I wanted to do. So, for example, to challenge myself to write a good, interesting speech, a story speech in both French and Spanish. To give evaluations in French and Spanish. To visit other clubs that speak French and Spanish. To learn to deliver speeches, and I should have put in French and Spanish from memory, because I can do it in English, not a problem, but I can't do it very well in French or Spanish. To take on the Toastmasters role in French and Spanish. And then finally, to finish one of the pathways, which was presentation mastery by June of this year. So how did I do? Not bad, really. The things I didn't do very well is I didn't do evaluations in French or Spanish. And I realized, well, how come? What's going on? And I realized it's my comprehension. It wasn't good enough to be able to fully understand Angela speaking fast or Maria speaking fast to be able to do good evaluations in French or Spanish. And the same applied with the Toastmasters role. I'm so busy doing writing that I really didn't get around to thinking about doing this. But what I did do was I kept a track on everything in a spreadsheet. And I've got this massive spreadsheet where I record everything I'm going to be doing. And it's easy once you set it up to be able to track. So I knew what I was going to be able to do, what level I was going to be able to do it at, and the more I did, the easier it became. But the key was writing things down, even if I didn't achieve it. So, for example, if I can pull it up, I will show you. Come on. I wrote it out longhand, a speech about failing to plan, and I put all my goals down. Then I wrote them down and wrote it out. And I found that even if I didn't achieve everything, I achieved more than I thought I was going to achieve, simply by writing it down. And when I go back to my goals, I found that I achieved them. So then I fast forwarded to this year. I was like, well, so what are you going to do this year? So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to do it in Portuguese now. I'm going to write interesting speeches in Portuguese and see how that goes. This time, I'm going to do evaluations in Spanish and Portuguese and French. I'm going to do some workshops in 3 languages. I'm going to complete this mentoring club role by the end of June 22. I'm going to take on a Toastmasters role in French and Spanish. And I'm going to do this, I was going to set up a project called Project 63 and a podcast. I was going to see how all that went. And again, so how have I done? some good. I didn't do everything, but I've done quite a lot of things. I've done workshops in 3 languages. I've done evaluations in French. Still have to do one in Spanish. I've done the Toastmasters role in French. Still have to do it in Spanish. I completed the mentor role, and I've been writing some interesting speeches in Portuguese. Admittedly, they're translations from the French or the Spanish, but nevertheless, I still managed to do them. The idea of the Project 63, that turned into me writing a book instead, which quite how I went from doing an online blog to writing a book, no idea. But it came back to that, this whole idea of failing to plan is planning to fail, that the mere fact that I write things down, I get a better chance of actually doing it or not. So I've got a challenge for all of you and anybody else who's going to listen to this, is that there are 3 things that you can do right now, and they're very simple. And the first one is do something every day. No matter what I'm doing, I try to do something in either French, Spanish or Portuguese every day, from listening to the radio, to reading a book, to talking to my mentor in French, Spanish or Portuguese, to translating something, but try to do something every day. And I do read. I read in French, and I've been reading Tintin. So it doesn't matter what you read, it doesn't matter that you read. So I read Tintin, or I read a book in French using my Kindle, and I've been reading Juan's book in Spanish on my Kindle, again, so I can look up the words. I'm still struggling to understand how to translate burbujas de acero in a good translation, and I've asked him about it, and we're both not quite sure, but it's a good challenge to try and do things like that. And writing, I try to write something in these languages, because then again, sometimes I confuse myself as to which language am I actually writing in, and I don't know. But I still keep trying to push, because trying to write in French, to remember to put the apostrophes and the accents in, and the commas, it's difficult to remember to spell things correctly. But little by little, qu'est-ce que c'est? I begin to realize how to spell that, because you do it so often, it becomes like rote. Spanish is much easier to write, but even so, still got to remember which tense am I using? Am I using usted and not usted, and all that type of stuff. But 3 things that you can do straight now. If you're doing them, choose another 3 things. But these are 3 things that you can get going with. Write it down. And I think one of the keys to my success has been asking for help. And I have 3 mentors who help me. I've got Karine, who lives in Paris, Pilar, who lives in Santander, rather, and I've got Vanessa, who lives over in Portugal. And either once a month or every 2 weeks, I get together and we do half an hour in English and half an hour in French, Spanish or Portuguese. And I talk about my speeches. I either speak them out loud or we just discuss them, and then they do the same in whatever they're doing. They're Toastmasters, so they know the idea and what to do. But it's to take action, it's to do something, it's to do something every day, and not to make it onerous. And so let's just go back down to it. Every day reading something. So looking at what I was going to do for next year, I think it's going to be more of the same. As you know, I've been writing a book and translating it as I go along. And I find by translating it into different languages, I get to know the language even better. For example, in English, we use the ing a lot, doing, talking, walking, eating, and all that type of stuff. Whereas in French and Spanish, it's not used as much. It's used, but not as much. And so by knowing that, it helps me to be able to work out, how do I say that in Spanish? How would Maria say something in Spanish? How would she say it in English? And what's the difference? And little by little, I'll get to know the differences between the 2 languages. Do more evaluations. That's going to be my big challenge, is to actually go and do that. Workshops, I'm still working on those. I gave one in French recently. I'm going to carry on doing that. And I'm aiming to finish at least 3 areas within pathways, 3 complete pathways. And I'm not quite sure how far I'm away with the level 4s and 5s, but I shouldn't be too far away from completing at least 4 pathways by the end of 2023. And I say, taking on the roles of Toastmasters. So again, I'm not trying to do too much, but I'm just trying to do things regular over and over again. I do other things, but these are some of the Toastmasters goals. So again, it's back to this little and often idea. Every day I say to myself, well, what are you going to do today? It could be 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's trying to bring the languages that I'm working with to my mind. So having Tintin by my bed reminds me that I should open and read it. Having a link to the French radio means, I'm going to click on it and actually listen to it. Having my Kindle with a book there, I can go and read, and so on. And then having a dedicated time in the diary on a repeat means I know that 2 weeks' time I'm going to be speaking with Karine, for example. Little and often, and try and make it easy for yourself, because it is, I think, the key to success. When you're learning another language, it's variety is the killer, and lack of variety. So, for example, I try to do all of these things, but not all at the same time. So one day I might focus on reading, another day it's writing, another day it's the mentors, another days it's just looking at my progress. How am I doing? Where am I going? What speech am I going to try and write for the next meeting I'm going to? Using the translation tools and then going over them to see how well or how close they are to what I think is good written French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And it's just doing all of these things, variety, again and again and again. And it might surprise you, but it's trying not to do too much. And I don't. I mean, people think, oh my God, you spend all your time. No, I don't. I don't. I play my guitar as much as I do Toastmasters. And I gave a classical recital over the weekend to some friends where I played for an hour, most of it from memory, but not all of it. So I got other goals which I'm working towards. And I believe that the success happens, though, by planning, preparation, and taking action. And it's all down to little and often. Annika, I don't know how many minutes have I gone so far?
3 minutes.
How many?
3.
I've got 3 minutes left.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm going to open. If anyone would like to ask me or challenge anything I've been doing and ask any questions, then let's have 3 minutes of asking questions. So let's use that as your evaluation if you'd like. Or if you've got no questions, then we'll finish. Go on, Mike, you've got a question, I can tell.
No, I don't. I think it was a very good presentation. I enjoyed it. A lot of information, planning, preparation, and taking action. What I take from that? Anyone else want to say something about Pedro's presentation today?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. Pedro, something you said really stuck with me, and that's the fact that you said, how do you know when you've become completely fluent? When do you know that you've reached the level that you want to achieve? And I think that really resonated with me because for many years, I feel like I've been trying to learn all different aspects, whether it's playing harp or public speaking or teaching children, whatever I've done, I always feel like it's never enough. It's like I've never reached that level that I want to get to. And I'm coming to this place where I just say, hey, I have reached a fantastic level and I'm going to enjoy where I'm at instead of always feeling like there's more to do. And I felt like you touched on that and I really resonated with that. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. There's I'm not trying to sail across the Atlantic Ocean. All I'm trying to do is just how far can I push myself? Just how good can I be, given that I'm not going to move to Spain anytime soon. I'm not going to live in France. I'm not going to live in Portugal. I'm going to be living in London. So just how good can I get? And it keeps surprising me that I seem to be getting better and better as I do it. And it's just this repetition and enjoying it. I mean, if I get bored of this, I'll stop, but I'm enjoying it. I enjoy your company, and I get a lot from listening to you guys, because you all bring different stories, and you know, the variety we've got in our small little club is quite extraordinary. Maria, I think you wanted to say something.
Well, I just wanted to comment about the speech. I think it was very motivational because, well, of course, relevant for all of us and for the time, you know, for the end of the year when everybody sets goals that, as you said many times, we didn't get to the first quarter of the year when we have already, you know, decided that we cannot do it. So having those little steps or little goals, I think is very helpful. And also another thing that you said, that is one of you show one of the visual aids showing that listening and reading and writing, and one of the things that you showed was looking at my progress. And I think that's very important, because sometimes you get to the bed at night and you say, oh, I haven't done anything because I couldn't do this and that and the other, whatever that I wanted to do today. But you always do something. So if you focus on what you have done, it will help you to not get frustrated and actually keep going. Because if you focus on what you haven't done, we haven't done a lot of things, but we have done a lot of things too. So I thought that was very, very important. And I follow that philosophy. I try to do, because I used to get very frustrated too. And I believe it's amazing what you have done, how many speeches, how many levels, how many pathways. The only thing I have to say about the speech itself is that it's so impressive. I would have liked to listen to your voice with more. Sometimes when we talk about ourselves, because we try to be humble, or I don't know, or we don't like to sell ourselves that much, maybe we don't put the enough energy to talk about it. But I think that what you have done is very impressive, and I would have liked to hear your voice like, wow, 56 speeches, look at this board, look at this from 2019 to 2021, how far I have gone, you know, because it's true. And that energy, I think, is the only thing that I would say that you should put in this speech if you are going to give it again. But
I haven't lived in the States, so that's probably the problem. I haven't got.
But it's true. You are not talking about something that you have not done. You are talking about something that you have done. You are showing it to us in slides. You know, it's true. It's tangible. So put some energy into it. Sell yourself. You have to sell yourself.
Well, it's going to be my challenge. Is I'm going to do this same speech in French on Monday, next Monday. So.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you very much. Right, stop sharing. Where's the stop sharing button on this thing? I can never find it. Can somebody stop sharing for me? Oh. Where's it gone to? Oh, there it is. Okay. And stop recording.
Any more comments for Pedro? Angela, anything you wish to say?
Yeah, I think I agree with Maria that maybe this time of the year is good to have a review of all of the year, and I think it is now an example to say, okay, I'm going to follow my progress in whatever topic or whatever thing I do, and it's good to know how clear is on paper all the figures. So maybe we can do this kind of thing in our lives to know where where now and where we want to be next year, for example, set goals. So thank you for this kind of presentation to give us an idea to do in whatever we do every day. So thank you. And other thing, Maria, you know, Pedro said the other day, oh, it's a pity because Maria wasn't in the other speech because he was standing up. And he said,
Pedro,
oh,
you should have done it today that I'm here. I didn't say anything about that.
If I hadn't been using the slides, I would have stood up. But the problem